friends, welcome to the today's lecture which is on Hindi cinema and religious tourism. In the earlier lecture on the same theme, we talked about the various aspects of this particular theme, that how religious tourism is important. We talked about the background of Raja Harishchandra, which was Dada Phalke's first film, and also the first film which was made in India, and his ideas, that how he wanted to show the Indian images to the audience in that sense, and when he wanted to in a way connect the Indian masses to those moving images. So we find that when we talk about cinema, many times it is argued that it is only linked to entertainment, but when you talk about Dada Saheb Phalke's ideas, there is when he wanted to make a film, that he wanted to show the Indian images. So this also reflects the ideas of cultural and cultural roots which are associated with the Indian cinema. And we also realize that in the last lecture I also talked about Shyam Benegal's idea, where he was talking about the TV series Ramayana and Mahabharata and how they were important in that sense, and how people from all communities saw these kinds of images. And we also talked about that the various when shooting was being conducted in the various regions, and when the important places of these regions, which were the pilgrimage and the religious places, especially the temples and like Ghats of Banaras, etc., when they were being shown on the screen, that so many people they got influenced in that sense, and because of which they also visited these places. And we find that when you talk about the importance of the religious places, many times we find that it was not only talked about in only in the religious films and the devotional films, but many a times they were also being talked about in the non-religious films as well. And one of the films which we talk about, which we will talk about, is Nastik, which was made in 1950s, and how in these films also we find the ideas of faith, philosophy and religion. They were highlighted through the filming during that particular period. And as I told you, that we'll talk about a film called Nastik, where the main character Anil suffers a deep mental trauma and injustice, and he believes that the cause of this was to be some kind of a priest who was there. And because of this experience, he adopts the path of atheism and starts denying the existence of God. And when that particular priest, who is being in a way blamed by the character, he feels that the protagonist of the film is planning to take revenge on him, he sets out with his daughter on a pilgrimage to major pilgrimage sites like Dwarka, Rameshwaram, Banaras, Haridwar and Puri. And he is also followed by the protagonist of that particular film to these places. And we see that how the protagonist, when he is watching the gods and goddesses, when he is going to these particular pilgrimage sites, but he does not worship them. And this paradox, in that sense, where he is seeing but not worshipping, becomes a philosophical experience in itself, where the hero or the main protagonist moves towards self introspection through a confrontation with the God. So we find that the question of belief and non-belief was there in the main protagonist, who was a non-believer. But once when he visits these places, when he develops that kind of an interaction or some kind of a faith with the God, in that sense, and when he is visiting these particular places not only as centers of faith but also as symbols of personal struggle and self realization as well, because we find that how that particular individual was in a way was having some kind of a struggle, and he also needed to self realize as well. And one of the important aspects which we see, that how when people they are working in the religious films, then they have a lot of popularity. For example, that how the actors and actresses, those who are working in the various kinds of cinema, they have a lot of popularity in that sense when you compare them with other sports or politics or business. And we find that how these film stars or film actors, actresses, when they are being shown in the religious films, then we find that how when they visit these pilgrimage sites, others are also in a way influenced to watch such or visit such kind of the religious places or pilgrimage sites. And we find that when you talk about the aspects of cinema, that how it has contributed to the spread of religious and the spiritual viewpoints among the masses, but has also given a new dimension to the religious tourism. And in the last lecture I gave you some kind of figures with regard to last 4 or 5 years, that how the number of tourists to these religious or pilgrimage sites has increased considerably, and the kind of money which has been generated because of their visit in terms of the income has also increased manifold. So, when you talk about the religious film and how it is being shot against the backdrop of a place, that place gains popularity and also the local economy, it also gets a boost. And this is also important, or it is also relevant from the framework of so many other films, that once you visit one particular spot, and there are various kinds of spot which have been formed at different places, and there are tourist guides, those who are telling us that this particular scene of this particular film was shot at this place, and that spot also gets that kind of a recognition or that kind of a popularity, that so many others they also visit that particular place, and they also get photographed that this particular film was being shot at this particular spot or point. And when you talk about that how so many Indians they are settled across the world, and this kind of a diaspora we find which is there in every part of the world. And for these people, Hindi cinema is not just an entertainment but also a cultural kind of a religion that transcends the boundaries of caste, religion or race. That how so many people from the Indian diaspora, when they are living in different parts of the world, when they are watching these films, and through the films they are able to relate and relive the cultural aspects which are there. And that is why we find that so many Indian films in 90s and thereafter they have been so popular across the world. And over a period of time we have also seen that so many Hindi and Indian films they have been exhibited across the world at the same time. They have been released on the same day when they have been released in India in other parts of the world. So, this also reflects the popularity of these films, and it also reflects that these films they will be consumed in that particular region in which it has been released. So, it also in a way also showing that people are eager to watch such kind of films in that particular region at that point of time when it is getting an India release. And we have also seen that during the recent Kumbh, so many people from different parts of the world, so many Indians, part of the Indian diaspora, they came to India during this time. And that was not the only occasion. Earlier in the past as well, we find that the Indian tourists, not only Indian tourists, those who are living in India, but the Indians, those who are living across the world, they are also visiting these sites. And we find that how when these people they visit these sites, it was also because of the fact that many of the films which were made during this time, they were also talking about such kind of sites as well. So, we find that how religious films they increase the popularity of the pilgrimage sites, and how Hindi cinema has provided a powerful medium for expressing religion, faith and devotion. And we see that many of the times the film is not entirely a religious film. It does not only have a religious theme, but we find the kind of religious or the pilgrimage sites which have been shown in that particular film, and how the characters when they are connected with some kind of narratives, when they visit these sites, then others they also get influenced. and we find that many of the religious films, they have centered their narratives around particular pilgrimage sites, thereby increasing people's curiosity and faith in these sites. And so when we will talk about some of these sites, when we will talk about some of the deities which are associated with these particular sites or locations, then we will be able to understand them in a far better manner when we will have this kind of a discussion, where we will see that the various deities which are associated, for example, Shirdi and Shirdi Sai Baba, how they are connected, and how popularity of Sai Baba also increased over a period of time, or the cult of Santoshi Mata. For that matter, it has been argued that cult of Santoshi Mata was created because of a very popular film. So when you talk about a film called Jai Santoshi Ma, which was released in 1975, and how the worship of Santoshi Mata became popular, and after the success of this particular film, there was an extraordinary increase in the number of devotees visiting the Santoshi Mata temple. So Santoshi Mata was not an all India character, kind of a goddess, as has been argued by scholars in 1970s, but at the same time we find that after the popularity of this particular film, we find that Santoshi Mata temples, they were opened in different regions, and people, they were also they started fasting for this Santoshi Mata. And we find that how film in a way was providing a model for the key element of the Santoshi Mata cult, namely making votive offerings, observing fast for a period, and establishing the goddess in the home. So the kind of rituals which were associated with the Santoshi Mata cult, we find that how when temples, they were being built for Santoshi Mata, and how various various temples, they were in a way reconsecrated, in that sense various goddesses like Shitala Mata, they were reconsecrated in the name of Santoshi Mata, not only in metropolitan cities but also at pilgrimage sites like Banaras. So that has also been talked about by scholars, and we also see that how this particular film was so popular that the practice of fasting for Santoshi Mata also got started. And when you talk about that how the women during that time, they went in large numbers to watch this film, how audiences, they were showering coins, flower petals and rice at the screen in appreciation of the film, and they entered the cinema barefoot and set up a small temple outside the cinema. So we find that the popularity of Santoshi Mata was so much, and how people when they were watching these films, they wanted to watch these films barefoot. They did not want to have their shoes and slippers on. That is why when they entered the cinema halls, they removed their shoes. So the kind of faith, the kind of devotion which the people had with regard to this aspect was also an important concern at that point of time. And when you even talk about urban areas which were too urban in that sense, like Bandra in Bombay, where mythological films aren't shown, then it ran for 50 weeks. It was a miracle. Anita Guha, who was an actress who played goddess Santoshi Ma, and how we find that songs of this particular film also became popular, and how the religious film, this particular film, which was considered to be an important religious film, which broke a number of records at that point of time, because of the fact that it was a very small budget kind of a film, and the kind of money which it earned was also huge in those days. And we find that when this particular film was released, it was competing with Sholay, and this particular film, Jai Santoshi Ma, was the second big hit after Sholay in 1975, and after that Diwar was at number 3. So we find that this idea of a religious film was an important aspect during that time, and how this particular film became so popular that it was able to generate so much money through the box office record. Apart from that, we also see another film called Kedarnath, which was made in 2018, and it served to popularize the glory of the Kedarnath temple in Uttarakhand to the new generation, and how the film was set against the backdrop of the natural disaster that struck Uttarakhand in 2013, highlighting the sensitivity and spiritual significance of the pilgrimage site. So we find that how this particular film, when you talk about and how so many people they started visiting this particular site here, we do not mean to suggest that that because of only this particular film people started going to these pilgrimage sites, but the idea is that when such kind of cinema is being made, people they watch such kind of films, then they also are in a way inspired to visit these places, not only because of the kind of scenic beauty which is shown in the films, but the kind of faith which they have, the kind of devotion which they want to exhibit in the framework of visiting these sites. And from the cultural point of view also they are able to relate, and because of their own belief systems where it is considered important to visit the pilgrimage places. So that is, these are some of the reasons because of which we find that people they want to visit these places, and cinema in that sense acts as some sort of a catalyst in this context, that people they start visiting these places. And when you see some kind of a data also, we realize that how the number of devotees visiting Kedarnath after this particular film was released also increased. And so in that way we find that how it in a way popularized the religious sites, and how some kind of a vital role in establishing visits to these places as religious tradition as well. And we also see that when these kinds of things they are happening, the number of people those who are going to these places it increase, and the economy of that particular region also gets some kind of a boost, because when people are visiting, restaurants are being opened, then we find that apart from the restaurants you have the hotel industry and the rest houses, so that people can stay there, then various kinds of shops which are also opened so that people can purchase from there. So we find that the whole setup of a town, which all things which are required they are available to the people those who are visiting these places. So the economy of that particular region gets that kind of a boost, and we find that according to the government officials, over 7.30 lakh devotees visited Kedarnath in 2018. The official figure was 694,934, and which was one of the highest in the last 4 decades. But we see that before this year the highest number of pilgrims visiting the temple was in 2012, when 5.83 lakhs. Website of sacredyatra.com gives this kind of figure, and how these people they visited this particular place. But over a period of time we see that there is a steady increase in the number of pilgrims over the past decades, except for a few years after the 2013 flash floods, and again there was a dip when COVID-19 struck, and because of the COVID-19 we find that lesser number of people they visited the different places, including Kedarnath. And when you see that when this particular film it got released, and how it played an important role in increasing the number of pilgrims, as can be seen from the fact that before the film's release on 7/12/2018, the number of pilgrims in the year 2018 was nearly 7 lakhs, which increased to 10 lakhs in the next year 2019, which shows an increase. Then we also find that apart from this particular place, there are other places as well, and in these places we find that the kind of numbers which are available to us, they also got increased, and the popularity of these regions also got increased during this time. For example, Ayodhya and Chitrakoot, and we find that several films and television serials based on Ramayana Ramayana and Sagar's Ramayana, and how they were connected to Ayodhya and Chitrakoot, and they were seen not only nationally but at the international level as well. And this international popularity is evident from an example mentioned by Vijay Mishra, and he writes that when the construction of Fiji's largest theatre, Relac, was completed in 1932, the Marathi film Ayodhya Raja, directed by V. Shantaram, was screened in this particular theatre to a packed audience, and it was followed by several movies based on Ram, such as Ramban, Ram's Arrow, Ram Rajya, Sampurna Ramayan, which were very, very popular among the Fiji Indians. And then you have Adi Purush, which was released in 2023, and it also played an important role in terms of increasing the popularity. And in this sense, when you see Prem Sagar's perspective on the role of Hindi cinema and television is particularly important. Prem Sagar was son of Ramanand Sagar, who made this serial Ramayan. Prem Sagar was the one who was the cinematographer of this particular TV series, and he had also importantly he had played an important role in that sense that he was a cinematographer for so many other important films which were made by Ramanand Sagar and others. And he has argued that how this particular serial definitely played an important role in shaping the Indian society and influencing the minds of people across India. And this show was not just a religious story but an emotional and moral experience that transcended the boundaries of caste and religion, promoting unity and shared values. And he also was talking about an incident in a hut in Rajasthan, in a remote village, where hundreds of people were watching the series Ramayan, which reflected its popularity. This scene proved how cinema and television mediums can connect people spiritually. So this he recollected when he was talking about this particular TV series, and he talked about Arun Govil, who played the role of Lord Ram, and Deepika Chikalia, who played the role of Sita, and how they became symbols of people's faith and characters, and how also they provided some kind of moral messages to the public. In a way, these actors and actresses were not just mere actors but became a guide to morality and religion for the audience. So we find that how when Ramayan got released and when it was being shown to the audience, religious sentiments of the people, they increased, and people's attraction for the holy places associated with it also increased. Ayodhya, Chitrakoot and Rameshwaram, they were they in the minds of the people, and how we find that people, when they visited these places, it was some sort of a religious ritual for them. And we find that how they also in a way started a new era of pilgrimage by connecting them with the faith of the people, and how this power of cinema, which connects the audience with the sacred geography and inspires religious tourism on a large scale. So in that sense, sacred geography is also an important component of this argument, that how certain regions, they are considered to be sacred in nature. Sacred in nature in that sense that from the nature's point of view also they are sacred, and at the same time they develop this kind of an approach, they develop this kind of an idea that they are relevant from the sacred point of view. And we find that the construction of the Ram temple in Ayodhya was a major center of religious tourism, with an unprecedented increase in the number of devotees, and how Ram temple in Ayodhya surpassed Taj Mahal to become the top tourist attraction in UP. And when you talk about the kind of government figures, Union Minister of Tourism Gajendra Singh Shekhawat stated in a written reply that according to the data received from the government of UP, there has been a significant increase in religious and spiritual tourism in Ayodhya after the construction of Ram temple. So we will continue with some of the arguments with regard to the religious tourism, with regard to how pilgrimage sites they have how they have seen increased number of tourists in our next lecture. Thank you very much.